Hi, welcome back to Garden on the Moors. Today I'm going to show you how I sow and grow Calabrese broccoli, all the way from when I sow the seeds up to actually harvesting the vegetables. So yeah, let's go take a look. To sow our Calabrese broccoli, I like to just make a pot full of compost and then I'm going to sow the seeds directly into there. I'm going to sow the first seeds now, which is the start of February. Then I'm going to do another sowing towards the end of February, and then I'll do a final sowing sometime towards the end of March. The reason for that is that I find that these Calabrese broccolis are best at the start of the season, and that as the year goes on and the summer goes on, they just get absolutely annihilated by the caterpillars. So I'd rather try and get them to grow and harvest before the butterflies are on the wing, just to minimise any damage that we get, because there's nothing worse than having a beautiful head of broccoli and then it's full of caterpillars and caterpillar poo and all sorts of stuff. So first thing we need to do is I've got my pots of peat-free compost. I've got my label here. I'm just going to write the date so I know when I sowed the first batch, which is right now is 4th of February, which is pretty early, but like I said, I've never had any problem with that in the past. What tends to happen is that they'll grow and then they'll stop, but they're still putting out roots and setting up as plants, so that's why I leave such a long time between my successions, so that I'm gonna have a longer period where I'm harvesting those Calabrese broccolis, but they're still going to be before the butterflies are on the wing, which is around sort of July time. So ideally, be harvesting these before July, August, or that's when I want them to be harvesting, because the caterpillars won't really be out by then, and they'll be a bit easy to manage. Anyways, so we've got our pots ready to go. I'm growing a variety called Kabuki, which I've grown quite a few times. It's a really good variety. I've grown it, like I said, lots of times, and it's given me brilliant broccoli heads. And what I'm going to do is pour them into my hand. Just let that there a minute. And then I make a little hole with my finger into the compost. And then I'm going to pop in there 3 seeds. So I've got 1, 2, 3. Tuck them in. And then once they germinate, I'm going to prick out the 2 weak ones and keep the strongest. That way I'm going to have the best plants going, because it's one main harvest from one plant. You do get additional harvests from the side shoots, but that real big head is a one-time thing. So I want it to be the best plant it could possibly be, and then it'll give us smaller florets after we've harvested that first head. 1, 2, 3. When these germinate, that is their sort of most vulnerable time, really, because they can be absolutely destroyed overnight by one hungry slug. So that's why I've got so many plants here. I could definitely keep all of these if I'm lucky enough, but I'm also half expecting some of them to be eaten by a little hungry slug that comes in. And what I also do is keep the area around them as clear and clean as possible, so that the slugs aren't tempted to come near them. I also put down things like beer traps that can capture and kill any slugs, but obviously you're wasting good beer, so you don't want to do that too much. And otherwise, just really hoping for the best. And yeah, see how we get on. So I just need to water these in, and then we'll come back in a few weeks' time when hopefully these have germinated and we'll be sowing our next seeds. It's about a month after we sowed our first lot of broccolis. They've germinated really well. We just need to thin out those so that we keep our strongest ones and sow the next batch. So here's one of our pots of Calabrese broccoli. You can see the 3 seeds that I planted in there have all germinated. What I'm going to do, because I don't need all 3, is just prick out these 2 smaller ones, which leaves our strongest one to grow and eventually be ready for harvest. This is why we grow 3, because not all of the seeds that germinate are strong. Occasionally you get one like this, which is a little weak tiddler. So it's an insurance policy. And also you may have noticed that some of our pots, not all the seeds did actually germinate, and only one of them did. But that means that we now have 5 nice strong broccoli plants. So now that we've sorted out the plants that have already germinated, it's time to sow some more. I've waited a month to sow these, because what I found in the past is that if I didn't, then the ones that I sow afterwards catch up really quickly at this time of year because it's been so cold and still not very light. Whereas if I give them a month, then I'm still going to get that nice succession rather than just one huge glut. So just like before, I'm going to sow 3 seeds per pot. So 1, 2, 3. And then once they're all germinated, I can get rid of the 2 weaker ones and just keep the strongest one. And that way I'm going to get the best chance for a good harvest in the summer. So that's those all germinated. I've still got plenty left for later. So again, I'll wait another month. So that will then be start of April. And I'll sow my third batch of broccolis then. And that way we should have a nice long season of Calabrese broccoli. So I've just got to tuck these into bed, give them some water, and leave them to it really. Well, it's now April. It's a lovely sunny day and the broccoli Calabrese plants have done fantastic. So the ones that we sowed back in February are nice and big. They're ready to go out. We'll plant those out later on today. The ones we sowed in March have come up really, really well. So we'll just thin those out and then we'll do our last succession of sowing today. So we've got good germination rate on lots of these Calabrese broccolis. So this one we've got all 3 germinated. The one behind it, we've only got the one that's germinated. And that's exactly why I always sow 3 into a pot, just as a bit of insurance policy. We can also see on the ones behind, we've had a little bit of nibble damage. Maybe a slug, something like that. Has had a bit of a munch out of these. But all in all, really not bad at all. So these ones with several in, we just need to thin them out and just keep the best one. So I think the best one out of these is probably this one because it's got the largest next leaf growing. So although it seems brutal, we just got to pull out the other ones and give that one all the room to grow. And then they'll end up like these lovely neighbours next to it. We're now in April, so the seeds that I sowed today of Calabrese broccolis will be ready to harvest in around July. That's about as late as I'd want to harvest them. I find after that it's too hot for them, there's too many pests, things like butterflies and moths and all sorts of things. And by that point, you know, we're in the height of summer then, and the butterflies are just trying every which way to possibly get in onto your broccolis. And then you have a lovely head of broccoli and it's full of caterpillars, even though you've covered them up and been checking them over. So I find it's just I just have them as like a spring crop up to July really. This will be the last sowing that we do. We're going to do them just the same as before. So put my little broccoli label in there. Make a little hole. And then drop 3 seeds in as an insurance policy. Right, so they're all in, so just got to tuck them in so they're nice and cosy and give them a quick water. And then once they are about the same size as the other ones from the first sowing, so we're looking for roughly 10 centimetres, but I'm actually looking for about 2 or 3 pretty big leaves, then I'll pop those out as well. So our broccolis need to be about 15 centimetres either side in between 2 rows. So I've got a row of chard and a row of onions here. So I'm just going to measure out where my guideline should be so that I've got nice straight rows. The reason we have nice straight rows is that it makes it much easier to weed. So I just want to put my line here. It's much easier to weed with a hoe because you're just going across one line. And that one about here. So the thing with broccolis, or Calabrese I should say, is that we want to bury the stem up to these first proper adult leaves, just here. And also we want to make sure it's nice and firmly in the ground. They absolutely hate being rocked around and tugging at their roots. So I'm going to bury it nice and deep, like I say, up to these first leaves here, and then we'll firm it in really hard just to make sure it's definitely secure in its position there. So I'm trying to cause as little disturbance to the soil as possible. A lot of people would put them in as plugs, but I find it just better if I can plant them in a bit bigger so they've got a nice root system just like that. So we're going to put them in nice and deep and then tap the soil all around him. So up to those adult leaves and then really secure it in. Now his friends need to be about 30 centimetres apart from each other, just like we would do with potatoes. And then I'll cover them over with some Enviromesh, just to make sure that no bugs get to it and no pigeons or anything like that will get onto them. And I'll put my label just there so I know when I sowed them. And I'll just give them a quick water and then we'll be back when it's time to harvest. It's a few months later now. These broccolis have grown on really well, and it's time to harvest some of the heads. So what we're doing is looking for one which is a good size, so it's had enough time to grow, but it hasn't opened its flowers yet. So this one is just on the edge, which is perfect. So we're going to harvest this one. All we need to do is go underneath and make some cuts through the stem so that we get a nice head of broccoli. That's perfect. Now, if you leave the plant there, what it will eventually do is grow mini heads, which is what's happened to the ones to the side. So for example here, you can see where I made the cut a couple of weeks ago, and now I've got these 3 mini heads here. Same on the next one along. The main cut was down in there,
But we've now got these other smaller heads as well, so we can harvest these and get 2 lots of harvest out of one plant, which is brilliant. There we are. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give a big like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you again next time. Cheers.